Blachowicz's victory was one among the most unusual in the crazy world of mixed martial arts in 2020. A win for the good guys and the adage that strenuous effort and no shortcuts will bring you to your destination. Hello everyone and welcome back to the world of MMA. In today's video, we'll be talking about Jan Blachowicz's road to the light heavyweight championship. So make sure to stay till the end of the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to keep up to date with all our videos. On the 9th of April the 8th, 2017, Dorota Jokowska was sitting in her Warsaw, Poland home, her face lit by the illumination of a computer screen. She was nervous to the point of feeling nauseous, and she didn't get any sleep till the next day. Jan Blachowicz, her boyfriend, now fiancé, had just suffered another defeat in the UFC. Blachowicz was defeated by Patrick Cummins by majority decision on the undercard of an event in Buffalo, New York, marking his fourth loss in the past 5 bouts and dropping his UFC record to 2-4. Jokowska was heartbroken, but she needed to concentrate. Jokowska had been Blachowicz's manager since before her UFC days, and she had a very significant, challenging role ahead of her that night, in addition to their relationship. Blachowicz's employment had to be saved. "Oh my god, I was afraid he was going to be fired. In all seriousness," Jokowska explained, "I was expecting the email to inform me that he has left. I instantly sent an email to UFC matchmaker Mick Maynard. That night, there were a lot of emails back and forth. That was a really tiring evening." Blachowicz, who is currently the reigning UFC light heavyweight champion, has had a lot of pleasant nights since then. Jokowska, of course, had no idea what would happen to Blachowicz when she made her case to the UFC nearly 4 years ago to retain him on the roster. In retrospect, she admits that her case wasn't particularly compelling. Blachowicz hadn't been outclassed in the UFC, and his fights have been close. But a 2-4 record is still a 2-4 record. Jokowska said, "I pushed them so hard to give Jan another chance. I informed them that Jan is a major star in Poland, and I was aware that they intended to conduct an event there. He has to be on this card, I told them. That was my final argument for not firing him." Jokowska's efforts were successful. Gdansk, a city in northern Poland, hosted a UFC event in October 2017. Blachowicz was promoted to face Devin Clark, a solid American prospect who was 8-1 at the time. Blachowicz went into the battle knowing he'd lose and get kicked out of the UFC. He'd never been more confident as he was that night when he walked to the octagon. "I started to believe positive things will happen again before that fight," Blachowicz adds. "I was filled with zeal. This isn't the end, I knew. I'm not going to be able to end this adventure like this. I knew I needed to win the fight and show myself that I was still capable of much more." Blachowicz has demonstrated to himself that he already knew he can beat anyone after 8 wins and 1 UFC title. The rest of the world, on the other hand, has been sluggish to catch up. "If you could make one fight in 2021, what would it be?" BT Sport asked UFC President Dana White in late 2020. "John Jones versus Israel Adesanya" was his response. Since then, White has stated in interviews that there are huge differences in completing the fight. Blachowicz is, of course, the earliest of them. The UFC might take multiple routes to a super battle between Jones and Adesanya, but they all begin with Adesanya defeating Blachowicz at UFC 259. So the resurgence of the UFC's light heavyweight champion isn't the focus of the story. It's because he's a stumbling block. Blachowicz isn't disrespected overtly in the world of mixed martial arts. People recognize his talent, but likely he isn't treated with enough respect. Jones, the most dominant light heavyweight of all time, voluntarily surrendered the belt in 2020 because defending the title against Blachowicz wasn't particularly exciting. Blachowicz was the only UFC champion who did not garner at least 1 vote in ESPN's pound-for-pound rankings as of last month. This fight is extremely good because everyone will recognize Jan after this fight, and he will finally gain the respect he deserves, Jokowska says. "He's still the dark horse despite being a champion. This is more my style, but Jan is beginning to think the same way. We'll see what they say after he gives Adesanya his first loss of the season." Blachowicz may not have many supporters, but those who he does have are vocal about him. He had no MMA experience when he signed with Polish MMA organization KSW, one of Europe's premier promoters, in 2007. But because KSW CEO Martin Lewandowski had heard his name so many times, he decided to give him a chance. For us, he was a huge word-of-mouth signing, Lewandowski explains. He was a Muay Thai amateur champion, but he had no idea what MMA was about. He was a one-of-a-kind warrior from the start. He never rose to the position of being our most famous figure. His abilities made him a top performer, but not in terms of popularity. He was in the top 5 or 7 of our top talents, but he wasn't number 1. He wasn't the most popular PPV attraction. That's most likely what he's lacking today. He isn't well known in the media. He isn't a big talker. He isn't a performer. Blachowicz's problem, and the reason he's still underappreciated now, is that he combined his modest, gentlemanly demeanor with a disastrous start to his UFC career. In combat sports, you don't have to talk trash to make headlines, but you can't go 2-4 in your first 6 outings if you don't say trash. Blachowicz's poor start was because he was experiencing doubt for the first time. Not in himself, but the people around him. It was like, okay, I'm in the UFC, I need to train harder and have something new now. Blachowicz says, oh, the UFC has good wrestling, everyone said. To be the finest in the world, you must have excellent wrestling skills. As a result, I switched camps. Everything was altered by me. Blachowicz left his longtime trainer in Warsaw, Robert Jocks, and went 200 miles west to train with New Squad in Poznan, Poland, just days before his UFC debut. It didn't work out. I think they just changed my style there, Blachowicz adds. And it was a terrible mistake. I'm not sure how to express it, but I have a nice wrestling style. They tried to transform my takedowns and punches into pure wrestling, even if it wasn't a pure type of wrestling. Okay, this is working for you, but not for me, I finally said. Blachowicz had to wait a long time to realize that the coaching change wasn't working for him and that he needed to return to Jocks. That happened in 2017, right before his career-saving Clark fight. Blachowicz is 8-1 since rejoining his previous coach. He defeated the likes of Jared Cannonier, Luke Rockhold, Ronaldo J.K. Souza, Corey Anderson, and Dominic Reyes, among others. Despite his achievements, he remains a perpetual underdog. Only twice in his last 10 fights has Blachowicz been favored to win. He doesn't seem to mind. Blachowicz's status has risen in Poland since he won the title by knocking out Reyes at UFC 253 in September. When he returned home, his small village of Szczecin organized a huge party. He was invited to meet Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. He was named to a list of the most famous Polish athletes in 2020. The same acknowledgement has yet to emerge from the rest of the sport. A win against Adesanya, on the other hand, is more about rivalry for Blachowicz than it is about recognition, money, or celebrity. In 2007, he made his professional MMA debut in quest of a new challenge. That was his source of inspiration throughout this time in KSW, and eventually into his UFC career. That's what was on the line more than anything else in 2017 when his UFC roster spot was in peril. Blachowicz didn't want to miss out on the chance to compete against the best. From the beginning, that was Yan, Lewandowski adds. We couldn't afford to pay him well in the beginning of his career, but he didn't seem to mind. He was the one who was looking for a new challenge. He aspired to be the best fighter in the world. He didn't avoid the individuals who were good on the ground because he wanted to battle them. That's what MMA is all about, he remarked. Blachowicz approached Lewandowski on 2 occasions and said he wanted to sign with the UFC. As a promoter, Lewandowski wished to keep his players. He persuaded Blachowicz that there would be difficulties for him in KSW, which is known for attracting international talent, not only Polish. However, when Blachowicz approached him again, the conversation was brief. Lewandowski said, I saw it in his eyes, that was his dream. I made no attempt to persuade him to stay. Even seeing him go there made me joyful. That's the only time I've ever said something like that about a boxer departing. I believed he had the potential to be a UFC champion because he'd beaten foreign opponents in KSW. With that, we've come to an end. Let us know your thoughts and views in the comments section below. Make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. Until next time.